Okay, thanks, Phil. So as I was saying, thank you for joining. The main theme of the summer workshop is around smart work zones. So as you can see, the workshop is being recorded and the information will be shared on the Alliance website afterwards. We have three presenters today. Many thanks to the presenters for their efforts in preparing and also taking time out today. We have JP from RTC Southern Nevada, Margaret Kublins from FDOT District 7, and Dan D'Antonio working on behalf of FDOT but from HNTB. And then Sean's going to give an update on the work zone data piece as well. Please place yourself on mute during the workshop. If you would like to contribute or ask a question, please use the raise your hand icon in the top right hand part of the screen, and the moderator will then unmute yourself when the moderator recognizes you. So without further ado, I will hand over to JP from RTC Southern Nevada. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Leah. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, everyone. I guess it's still morning here in Las Vegas. We really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you about what we're doing with our work zone detection and management program out here in Las Vegas. I'm going to turn my video off just to preserve bandwidth. I don't have the world's best Wi-Fi connection, so we will get rolling. I've got 16 slides, so hopefully that can be done in less than 20 minutes. So the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada is unique in the country in that we have these four core functions all under one roof. We are the public transit operator. We are the metropolitan planning organization. We are the regional traffic managers, and we are the administrator of federal and local funds to our member agencies. I am the Senior Director of Engineering. I've been in that role about a year. I've been at the RTC about 5 years. Prior to that, I was the City Traffic Engineer for the City of Henderson in Southern Nevada here, a suburb of Las Vegas. And prior to that, I worked for Clark County Traffic Management and the Nevada Department of Transportation. So I've got 27 years of experience in traffic engineering and work zone management, permitting, approval, inspections, and all that good stuff. So, like I said, I'm really happy to be here and tell you what we've got going. Just so to orient everyone, the member agencies that comprise the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada is or are the Clark County, unincorporated Clark County. Think of Las Vegas Strip. Think the famous Welcome to Las Vegas sign. That Welcome to Las Vegas sign is not in Las Vegas. It's about 4 miles south of the border of Las Vegas, which some people find interesting. So like many things in Las Vegas, you know, it's you got to be careful with what you're being told. So, and then of course the city of Las Vegas is a member, the city of North Las Vegas, the city of Henderson. That comprises the valley essentially, and then there are two outlying member agencies: the city of Boulder City, which is about a half hour from downtown Las Vegas, and the city of Mesquite, which is up on the Arizona border. So we are a population of about 2.2 million. Before the COVID-19 crisis, we had over 40 million visitors a year come into town. Obviously, that's been drastically reduced. But we're still, you know, traffic is coming back. Visitors from California are coming back, so traffic is building again. So with these four things under one roof, we are really in a great position to care about and do something about, you know, work zones and managing them better and trying to minimize the impacts that they have on people's lives. So next slide, please. So to jump right into it, the RTC's Work Zone Detection and Management Program started in 2015, and it was really the result of an extreme increase in construction activity in the valley. This increase was caused by many factors, not the least of which was a new local funding program called Fuel Revenue Indexing, or FRI. That program, and this is a 2013-14 timeframe, that program identified 225 mostly shovel-ready projects that were worth about $600 million. The projects were promised to be delivered within a 5-year period, which was a very aggressive timeline, but that was necessary because this was coming out of the Great Recession, and it was really an economic stimulus package, a job creation bill. So that promise and the fact that the valley was coming out of the recession led to work zones, traffic control, and lane closures all over the valley, and it was causing a lot of angst. So what's the big deal with temporary traffic control? One of the things you need to know is that the RTC does not permit any of the work zones in the valley. The member agencies do that. We provide funding for the capital projects, for maintenance projects, but the member agencies administer and deliver those projects and do all the permitting and inspections of the private development work as well. So temporary traffic control affects 2 of our core functions, however, so we care about it deeply. Transit operations, and of course our role as the regional traffic managers. But again, it's important for you to know that we do not do the permitting, and we do not have direct control of the temporary traffic control permitting process. So this causes some of the problems that you see here. Every agency that issues a permit has a rule that says the traffic control company or the contractors are supposed to call in when they're going to set up a work zone. Very few of them actually do that, and there are a number of reasons for that. The work zones and lane closures, because of that, end up surprising people, frustrating people, and that is leading to, it can lead to a lack of support for another revenue generating initiative that we might have to come up with here, possibly in the next few years, to shore up our transit system. So we want to be able to show people that we can manage the work that's out there, fund the work that's out there, do it in a responsible way, so people are not inclined to turn their backs on us when we need their help for additional funding. So an additional problems is there's no performance data coming in from the work zones. And that causes problems. We don't really know the effect of lane closures in a very specific way, and there's no way to make an argument for the agencies to make an argument for additional resources to manage the work better. So those are all problems. So next slide, please. So the concept of operation, we basically have this divided into 3 parts. Is there any way to move, I wonder, this? That's okay. I'll get over it. There it is. I figured it out. Okay, so there are basically 3 parts of this concept. We want devices, smart devices, connected devices, temporary traffic control devices inside of work zones that are broadcasting out the status of the work zone. If it's a lane closure, where the work zone is, what kind of lane closures are going on, that kind of thing. And we want to send that out. We've applied for the work zone data exchange demonstration grant as well. So we want to use that spec to feed it out to all of these different people that you see there. So that's the first part of it. This work zone ITS specification is something that's added to the projects that we fund to get these types of devices in the field on the projects. The second part is networked dash cams on privately owned and government agency vehicles that are actively searching for work zones and lane closures from outside the work zone. So we got the inside out approach, and now, but as you all know, work zones come in various sizes and configurations. Not all of them lend themselves to aero boards and other devices, cameras, PTZ cameras, that kind of thing. So we need a way to find those. Plus, believe it or not all work zones are permitted. There are people out there that just like to go do work, set up a zone, and skirt the system. And we want an opportunity to find those folks. And that is our partnership with Nexar that we're going to talk about. And then finally, the third piece is our devices on the inspection and construction vehicles themselves that are inside the work zone. And those are also going to be broadcasting out the presence of workers and also announcing the location of the work zone to enhance awareness, enhance safety through the Waze app. Haws and Haws Alert and Waze have a connection. So the number one complaint that the agencies get, that we get, is that a work zone is set up and there's nobody working. As professionals, we know that sometimes there are legitimate reasons for that. concrete curing, pavement markings curing, whatever. A lot of times, though, there are no good reasons. It's an issue with an out of compliance work zone. So we want to have the opportunity to know when people are actually in the work zone. So next slide, please. So the work zone ITS specification. The draft of it is currently under evaluation. It is a voluntary participation at this point to get the member agencies to put that into their contract document so we can test the ability of the market to provide these connected, i.e. smart traffic control devices. Get them on the ground, get them broadcasting or sending out data, corralling that up, getting it in a format that is compliant with the work zone data exchange spec, and then sending it out for folks. This provides opportunity to industry to provide feedback to improve the spec. It's in draft form. It has not been officially adopted yet. We've got a lot of great feedback. This spec took over a year to develop, and it's really been on the street just a few months, 3 months. It also provides the opportunity to discover the actual cost of connected traffic control devices. That's one of the things that we hear from some of maybe the status quo type minds that are still at some of the agencies. We've been doing projects for years. You can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. What's the big deal? People will deal with traffic control as they've dealt with it for years. We're trying to get a really good handle on what these things actually cost, so we can do a formal cost benefit analysis at the end of this. And we also want to see the benefits that are going to be provided when this feed goes out in industry. The market goes to work and spins back all of these wonderful things that only they can think of. Ultimately, the goal is to manage work zones better to increase safety while decreasing road user costs associated with the denial of access to roadway capacity, and that's really what it is. The public pays dearly for access to the roadway. The public space, probably the largest investment that we make in public spaces are our roadways. And when they don't have access to that, it's only fair that they're compensated in some way. Right now, we have no way of doing that. So next slide, please. So the partners that we've been working with so far, where we've actually tested these devices and these people have responded to the spec, Icon Products and Vermac, both are well known in the smart work zone industry. They've started, like most of these organizations have, with freeway applications. We're working on molding that experience into an urban surface street dense environment. In that kind of environment, you're not going to come up on the back of a queue at 80 miles an hour, that kind of thing. So there's some definite modifications to their way of thinking have to happen, and that's why we have the spec out there to get their feedback. Some of the products that are available: Waze connected aero boards, Icon does that, PTZ cameras, and you can see the rest. Pretty typical menu of options. And as I said, this draft is under evaluation, and anybody that would like to get a copy of it, I could be happy to send it out to you, and we would love nothing more than to get your feedback on what you think. So next slide, please. So the Nexar network. This is the world's largest cellular-based vehicle-to-vehicle network. And we found them a couple years ago, started our relationship in late 2018 to see if they could train their computers to find traffic cones, and they're really good at it. We'll get into the details later. Basically, there are two types of systems. The dash cam is connected to your smartphone, and those upload images for analysis. Primary users are the Lyft and Uber drivers, professional drivers, commercial vehicles, that kind of thing, and they like the technology for their own purposes, usually liability reduction. They get in a crash, they can see whose fault it is, among other things. But there's also, this is pretty new, and they developed this was a request from us, is a zero interaction all-in-one dash cam that we can put on our buses, that we could put on our fleet vehicles to increase the number of eyes on the road, essentially. And they've tested and have shown us that works. It basically provides an aggregated and anonymized images of work zones and lane closures. As the artificial intelligence kicks in and they find these things, they've created a user interface, which I'm going to show you, and we can zoom in and see some pretty cool stuff. And then, you know, the bottom line is they can identify work zones and lane closures independent of the work zone ITS spec. That's important. We want to be able to get all that wonderful data out of the work zone, but everybody that's in the business knows that's not the whole picture for reasons that I said before. We want, this is a very dynamic environment. The way the permitting process works in the valley, it's hard to pin down. Like the agencies know exactly where the permits are at any one time. The RTC is the funding agency, and the agencies too know exactly where the projects are, what projects are technically under construction, but nobody knows precisely where the lane closures are and where the real issues are associated with the project being just in construction. That information is not that useful to people. They need to know where the work zones are, and this gives us another way to find them. So next slide, please. So this is coming up. The next are road work zones. They've got basically 3 tools within this suite. I'm going to talk about 2 of them. The road work zones. Those are all those orange dots. There's 411 of them. Those are work zones with at least 1 lane closed, at least in the estimation of Nexar's artificially intelligent computers. That's 1 day. That's 24 hours. That's 5 a.m. Tuesday, August 4th to 5 a.m. Wednesday, August 5th. So 411 potential lane closures in the valley. That's a big number. And prior to this, we had no idea what that number was. The agencies really had no idea where the lane closures were or how many they had. So anyway, next slide. If you click on one of those orange dots, you're going to be able to see an image like this. And there'll be several of them, and you can step through the work zone. That line up at top, that's if you drill into one of those. Thank you. Yeah, if you drill into one of those orange dots, it'll expand out like that. Not to get into the details, but it's basically too much of the details. You can see what is there now, what was there in the past. What is brand new now, and you can go back depending on how you filter it. You can go back in time. You can get direct access to about a month of data directly through the interface, but they archive data, and you could go back further if you need to. What you see here is probably an unpermitted work zone. We know that because if you look over by the truck tire there, you'll see a triangular cone. Those are not allowed on work zones anywhere in the valley. So the fact that that's out there might be an indication that this is unpermitted. There are other devices. This looks like a pretty routine job, so it probably is permitted. But Nexar created this tool so the permitting agencies can quickly filter on that and find the landscapers and find the people that are trying to do something quick and get out of the road before anybody sees them. You get the street location, the address, the time of day, the date, the heading the vehicle was going in, and the road you're on. So that's pretty cool. Next slide, please. The next thing that we're going to talk about is the Nexar virtual cameras. Now, this tool is again one of the 3 in the toolbox. This allows a person to anybody that has access to draw an area of interest on the map. When a Nexar connected dash cam goes through that area, it will upload an image when it sees something that you're interested in. So right now, anytime a person drives through that has a connected dash cam through that cross, that dark purple cross there, which is Charleston and Decatur, I believe, if you're familiar with the Las Vegas Valley, it will upload a picture, actually several of them. Next slide, please. That is what you're going to see. So it's hard to tell, but there's a dot and looks like headlights coming out of it in that upper band there at the right side of that purple cross. That vehicle is on Charleston. It's heading west, and that is what it sees. It picked up that arrow board. It picked up some of those candlesticks, and it said, that might be interesting. So let's upload that image. And you can make those geofenced areas as large or as small as you want. It could be the work zone itself. It could be an intersection like this. It could be a bus stop. We applied for another grant, an FTA grant, with Nexar as a partner to use this technology to keep an eye on our bus stops on the Strip. So this is really a powerful way for the agencies to get a near real time, and we've tested this, and these images are uploaded within seconds of a person driving through, and we have access with them for them within seconds. Not technically real time, but close. So that's a powerful tool. You'll see at the bottom each of those little hash marks. Those are separate individual images, all with a time and date stamp. So that is pretty cool, we think. And the agencies think so too. Next slide, please. This is slide 12, so we're winding down. The next partnership, the third leg of the Work Zone Detection and Management program, is our partnership with Haas Alert. We've been partnered with them now for about a year and a half. And next slide. This is where we want devices on work vehicles to let us know when workers are present. As I mentioned before, the other huge benefit is that Haas Alert has a relationship with Waze, and Waze users will then get a warning in the app or in their dashboards if it's a Waze-enabled dashboard in the vehicle. That there's a work vehicle ahead, and of course that's a good thing. People, start looking around, what the heck is going on, slow down, pay attention, all those things that are wonderful in work zones for people to do. But it also communicates to us when the amber lights come on, and I'll explain that in a second, that, hey, we got an active work zone. So a person calls, hey, there's a work zone that I don't understand. Why is it here? They call the agencies. They call the RTC. We can almost immediately see that there's a work there. There is no work going on. Let's figure out why and get the cones down, get the traffic control down if there's no reason for them, and explain to the citizen why they're there without seeing anybody quote unquote working if there is a good reason for it. So that's good. It's a communication device for us, but it's also a safety device. And then next slide, please. Next slide. That is what a vehicle looks like in the dashboard, the Haas Alert dashboard. The device is tied to the amber lights in the vehicle, so you can always see, you can track your vehicles. This was developed for emergency response, and we've kind of turned the concept on its head. The idea is that the emergency vehicles would have emitters, and people would download the Haas Alert app, and when an emergency vehicle was coming up on them, the two would communicate, and the user would get a warning: emergency vehicle approaching from the left, or emergency vehicle approaching from behind. And then a person, again, before they hear the sirens, before they see the engine, they can again wake up out of their slumber, look around, figure out what's going on, and get out of the way. And that has increased emergency response times dramatically. They branched out from that to put these devices on utility vehicles, put that relationship together with Waze, and now we are using it in this way. Instead of having the fire engine come up on the vehicle, vehicles are coming up on the work zone. So they're tied to the amber lights. When the amber lights go on, this goes green, and then if you click on the last slide, you'll see the message that shows up in Waze: utility hazard, utility vehicle ahead, work zone ahead. Again, this combined with the other three legs of that stool I was talking about, smart devices in the work zone, broadcasting to Waze and to through the work zone data exchange to other things. The Nexar application that isn't open to the public, that's an internal device or an internal system that we can use to find these things. And then finally the Haas Alert. Those three things are giving us excellent abilities to find active lane closures, which is really the point of all this. And then the final slide is my thank you and open for questions. I apologize, I went a tad long there, so thank you.
JP, thank you very much. Perfect timing, actually. So that's spot on. We've had a couple of questions come in already. So there's a couple around the specification that you've developed and whether it would be okay if that could be shared with us, so we can use it for kind of review and also potentially feedback as well.
Absolutely, we'd love your feedback. It's in draft form. we want to really ring it out and then send it through the committees for official adoption later this year.
Awesome.
So I'd send it to you, Lee. Would that be the best place to send it?
Yeah, if you can do that, then we'll make sure it's available on the website for everybody to take a look and provide some feedback.
Will do.
Thank you. Johnny Wong, would you like to unmute yourself, if that's okay? And I see you have a question.
Yeah, sure. I was just interested in knowing how they're using the Waze connected aero boards. I haven't been staying up to date on the functionalities of Waze, given that I rarely leave my house, but the last I checked, they were not reporting individual lane closures. Is that a new feature?
Yeah, that is, how do I say it? They are not reporting individual lane closures, but they are reporting the status of the aero board. So if where you have a Waze connected aero board, what will show up, and I was thought about maybe putting a slide in here that shows this. What it'll say is that left lane, if the aero board is in left lane close mode, it will show up when you won't. It doesn't give you an audible alert. You have to click on it, and it'll say left lane closed ahead, reported by icon. So one of the reasons for developing the specification was to get these devices in the field so Waze could see that there were a lot of potential feeds where they could get this information out to their users. Really, our relationship with Waze is difficult. They're not super responsive, so I don't want to say that we have cut bait with Waze. That's not the true. We're still partners. We're still in their partner agency program, but we're really now focusing more on the work zone data exchange spec. We want to get those devices that are sending data into that format and then sending it to whomever. Waze can ingest it, Google can ingest it, whatever. So that's really where we're going to now. But the actual technology that connects the aero board to Waze is not in our control.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks for telling me.
Excellent. Thanks, Johnny. Margaret, question regarding Nexar?
Yes, I was just curious to know how long you've been in contract with Nexar. So how long have you been this relationship?
We signed our first contract in December of 2008. 2018, and we've amended it a few times. It's actually the development contract is what we're calling it, has come to an end. That ended July 31st with their demonstration of that all-in-one camera. We are now working with the agencies to possibly develop what we're calling an operational contract, where the member agencies would have access to all the data valley-wide. That has not been ironed out yet. And that's where we are right now. So right now, technically, we're between contracts with Nexar.
Okay, good. All right. It all happens very quickly these days, doesn't it?
It does indeed.
Just one question from myself. Public feedback. How have the public responded to kind of some of the innovations and work that you've been doing?
Well, I didn't mention it, but we have a program called the Seeing Orange program, which was really focused on providing this information to the public, getting their feedback. When a person goes through a work zone, they don't know if they're in Henderson, Clark County, Las Vegas. So we wanted to be the clearinghouse for all of those complaints and questions. And then we want to understand what's going on, at least the basic level, so we can provide immediate feedback and help them understand what's going on. If we can't if they want more details, then we send them to the permitting agency. But the feedback on that program has been outstanding. It really has, because they've got someplace to go when they're jammed up and they want to know why, and the steam's coming out of their ears. They can call and we can tell them what's going on, and more importantly, how long the issues going to be there. As far as all these internal details, that really has not hit the road as far as public consumption goes. So we're getting good feedback on the increased level of effort and coordination and communication, but the public has not yet been aware of the real details of the program that I shared today.
Excellent, thank you. I see Eric Hill. Hi Eric, you've raised your hand. Would you like to mute yourself if you've got a question?
Hi, JP. If you can continue in that vein, and if anyone is considering looking at Nexar or this type of platform, what kind of lessons learned are you able to share with us at this point?
Well, I can tell you that computer people and traffic people do not speak the same language. It took literally a year probably before we could communicate to the point where they were understanding what it is we really wanted. And they, bless their hearts, they were trying really hard and we were trying really hard. But it was just, for instance, the first interface they gave us didn't have a way to filter things that they found at night. And we said, hey, we really need to know, what's going on at night with these work zones and traffic control devices. And they said, really? Why? You allow work zones at night? I said, well, yeah, we do. We kind of need that. That conversation that I summarized in 10 seconds probably took 2 weeks. That's really the main lesson learned, is to be patient. Don't assume that they know anything. They've learned a lot. We've taught them a lot in the last year and a half. But if there are specific things that you need, you have to explain why, not because they are questioning you, but because they need to understand, how to make it work. And for that, you really need a why. So that's probably the biggest lesson. Maintain the lines of communication, be patient, realize you're speaking in different languages, and be clear with what you want.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sean, final question, if you want to unmute yourself. I knew it's be a hot topic. Go for it, Sean.
Great, thanks, Lee. So a follow-up question on the Waze and arrow boards, just to clarify, because I think that this hasn't been clear to me in the past. So are the arrow boards publishing data in the WZDX format so that other consumers besides Waze can pick up the information? And then kind of alternately, is Waze consuming WZDX data so they're picking up things other than just the arrow boards?
To my knowledge, no. The way it's working in Las Vegas right now is that we do not have a work zone data exchange compliant feed yet. That's why we applied for the grant. The way it works now is that it's an XML feed that comes out of the brains of the arrow board. That goes to the servers at Icon. Then that is fed, either pushed or fed, I'm not sure of the details, to Waze, that then does what they do to it and sends it out to their users. That XML feed that goes from the arrow board to the servers at Icon also comes into our traffic management center and to our GIS department. And then we can take that and show where the arrow boards are and the status that they're in our own internal applications. The Seeing Orange map and what we call the Cone Management app are two of them, where you can see the arrow boards on our internal applications that are open to the public. So I can't speak for, I don't know what Icon has got going as far as moving toward that spec. They know, and they are partners with us on the grant. So that is the ultimate goal, is to corral all that information, host it ourselves at the RTC, turn it into that format, and then broadcast out, actually stand up the feed. So we're the clearinghouse of the data. Now, what they do on their own, if they end up creating their own data feed that is compliant, well then, God bless them. That's wonderful, and that would make our job easier. But we want to see if we can do it ourselves. Hopefully that made sense.
Great, thank you.
And please email me with any more questions or call. I'd be happy to get into the details and get you connected with these vendors as well, so you can get the straight poop from them.
Awesome, thank you, JP, and thank you again for taking time out of your day. Really appreciate it. I think it's been incredibly useful for everybody on the call, I would think.
Thank you.
So, Margaret, thank you. Over to you.
Okay, I have to find my mouse. That's always important. Well, thank you. Thank you for that, all that information. It's very consistent with a lot of the research that we've been doing. And it's a very fast-paced world out there when it comes to technology for the work zone data exchange concepts and then smart work zones. So it's exciting to be able to sit in this chair and watch it all happen. So I'm Margaret Kubelins. I'm the program director or the program engineer for SafeTrip. And last fall, Ron DeSantis was able to announce that we were awarded funding for a $1.4 billion project, which is the reconstruction of the Tampa West Shore interchange. As you see in the map on the left, the general limits of the project are the Howard Franklin Bridge on the west, down to the Hillsborough River, and then on up towards the Veterans Expressway. This is a very big project, very important for the region, very necessary as well. Next. So if you travel through Tampa, you understand that this is at the center of Tampa, and it's very congested. We have bottlenecks every single day. We have some capacity constraints, and we really need to make some changes. So we feel very fortunate to have the opportunity in order for us to deliver an opportunity to expand the ability for people to move throughout Tampa. It's very important to have an opportunity like this, and it's very comprehensive. So we'll be able to show you over the next several years how we're developing our transportation management plan in order to facilitate the construction of the interchange. Next, please. So SafeTrip is the brand that we're using to encompass our transportation management plan. And that's basically our umbrella. And then TRIP, of course, SAFE is very important to all of us. We are in one of the worst regions across the country in regard to our fatalities and serious injury crashes. And we want to make a difference in that world. And simultaneously, we need to manage all the traffic that is, or everyone that's trying to move through the West Shore interchange. So we've divided into 4 elements that creates our trip. So we have our traffic management, we have regional demand management, we have innovation and public engagement. Next, please. We've spent some time so far establishing our vision and what we really want. And this is how it stands. We're working very strongly in creating a plan that is well planned and innovative. We want to make sure that we have the latest technologies available, and we're deploying those as quickly as possible. Focusing on safety and reliability, and making sure that we're not just moving cars, but also making sure that we provide quality transportation choices for all of our users. There's all kinds of needs out there, and we're being very attentive to that. We want to be strategic in how we present and we do our implementation, as well as we want to make sure that we have proactive communication and we are receiving feedback and incorporating the feedback that we get, and then how does it influence our process. Next, please. So this is a deeper dive into all the goals for our TRIP. And there's a lot to read here, and you can go back and read all of it, because I could talk about all this all day long. But in the traffic management, I am proud to say that at this point, we're looking at projects that we could advance and we can get on the ground before we go into construction. We're also looking at instrumentation. How can we use technology in order to help our local area network be more effective in handling any kind of increases in traffic on the local streets? On the second part, under regional demand management, again, how are we going to provide transportation choices? How are we going to support micromobility? How are we going to support longer range trips? Is it through enhanced transit opportunities? And then we also are paying attention to our freight. How are people going to be able to deliver those goods within West Shore? And then also having the airport within the same footprint. We need to pay attention how we are the construction is impacting them. So we want to make sure that we have a collaborative opportunity to share information that's timely. Innovation includes our smart work zones. It is where we're going to establish a work zone data exchange. And we're at the infancy of our mobility as a service. And we'll be working with the city, actually all the local governments, and how we make that happen as well. And then with public engagement, like I mentioned before, we have a very robust system already in place, but we want to make sure that we are getting information out to the public, all to the businesses. We're delivering the same message to multiple places repeatedly. And so that's how we need to get out there and work with everyone and then bring them into the overall program. So a little bit more detail, next slide. So here's an example of our network. The bright yellow is 275, but then you can see how the network is going to be really important for us to be able to leverage all of that existing capacity, and then we are identifying areas that pinch points where we might need to add a turn lane, or do we want to do transit signal prioritization, and what other kind of techniques can we deploy in order to have a more efficient use of the existing network. It's going to be really important because, you know, as soon as you put those drums up, or barrels, whichever you want to call it, or an airboard, you know that we're going to already lose some of the capacity. And it's about bringing people through the entire work zone safely and harmonize traffic and traffic speeds. Next, please. The regional demand management, where we stand, a matter of fact, just yesterday, we got some pinpoints. We're trying to identify very specifically where the further people are commuting in and out of the West Shore area. We're identifying who's passing through, what that volume, and recognize them as a user. But we're also getting down into those other trips, like a 3-mile bicycle trip is a reasonable commuter trip. So what about that 3-mile stretch? And then do they have safe choices in order to do their daily commute, maybe on a bike? I mean, we do live in Florida, and it may be hot right now, but most of the year it's comfortable and you can actually ride your bike to work. Next, please. Another piece that I put in there was another sub-element that we have under innovation is our smart work zones. So the zipper merge is the late merge. And that is a concept that has actually been deployed in multiple places across the country. And we're working very strongly on how to make that work and make it as real time and automated as possible. We also have speed harmonization was another component of our smart work zones. You'll hear a little bit more about that when Dan D'Antonio presents about our pilot project on Gateway. Next, please. The public engagement, it's all about having that real-time data out there. We have been doing a lot of research on the use of iCone products. I love the concept of having those the sensors that are already on the aero boards and using the rentals. They already have the smart technology in there. So if anybody activates an aero board, then we're going to be able to send that information out and get it to Waze, basically, or any kind of app that somebody's already using in order to navigate the transportation system. Fortunately, in Florida, we have Florida 511 and then the DIVAS program. As far as getting out data feeds, there's a very robust opportunity that's already occurring in Tallahassee. So we are paying attention to what Tallahassee's doing, but we also want to make sure that we have a robust program here within Tampa. So there's a lot of action that's going on. We're trying to bring it all together. At the end of the day, it's really getting the information out to the public. But we're into neighborhoods, we're into all kinds of different smaller groups as well, or larger groups, excuse me, and businesses. Next, please. So on the business side, we do have a community advisory task force, and these are our business partners, and we've had our first meeting already, and we have another one coming up probably the first part of September, if not the end of August. We look to them for feedback and participation. Some of the smaller projects they may be able to deploy, they may be seeking grants or whatever it might be, because it is going to take a very collaborative effort. I like how JP, you had mentioned that someone on the street doesn't necessarily know, they don't know the jurisdictional boundaries. So it's upon us to be seamless in order to provide the solutions from this one government. They just see government, and we need to make sure that we're doing our job and we're being collaborative so they have the best experience within the transportation network. Next, please. The community engagement that we've been performing has been very robust. We needed to, because we needed to change what we were doing from a couple of years ago, and we continue that. Even though we're in this COVID situation, we are still having meetings. I think most people have gotten to the point where they're comfortable being on a Zoom or a Teams meeting or whatever it might be. It's the nature of our business now. And we even now have guidelines to do public meetings on an interface or a platform such as Teams, like we're doing today. We're pushing a lot of information out, so we're trying to get information out as well as making sure that we create the right conduit for people to send feedback to us as well. Next, please. We also have taken advantage of establishing some lessons learned. We've already talked to District 5 and others, their support team from the I-4 Ultimate. So we've already talked to District 5, which is Orlando, find out what went right, what went wrong, how do we make this work better. We've also talked to Missouri DOT, and so when they rebuilt I-64, they had an advantage where they were able to shut down their interstate, build it under no traffic whatsoever, and then they opened it up. I-66, we just had a debrief on that yesterday or the day before. I apologize, I go to so many meetings, they blend. But we also had some really robust conversation going back and forth between VDOT. And so that was really helpful. It's amazing how state agencies as partners across the country are willing to share. I mean, if you're going to go through this much brain damage, you kind of want to share it with somebody else so they don't have to relive it, right? So hopefully one day, because our project is so large, one day we're going to be able to share this same information and our lessons learned with others. So every go around, it's going to get better and better. And then we also have some additional calls that are coming up with Wisconsin. Next, please. So here's an overall schedule. We are developing Safe Trip right now. Then we expect to complete the plan and let it kind of rest. We're going to finish that up and have a really good, strong document in the spring of next year. And then in the meantime, we are looking at, and right now we're looking at early project deployment. Because there are projects that are already in our work program, we're trying to make sure that those stay on pace or on target. If there's a reason they have to be delayed or there's a reason we can't get it done, we have to look at how we're going to supplement that. And so we're studying very closely. It's a very demanding time right now for us to establish funding mechanisms and then looking for future projects. And we are looking for a lot of different ways for us to get things built. Again, this is also we're not just looking at DOT activities, we are also looking at what local government agencies are doing. For instance, we're very interested in seeing what the city of Tampa has on their plate for their bicycle infrastructure within the Tampa Bay area. And then how is that bicycle infrastructure going to be built and in place by the time we go into construction? The West Shore interchange starts in 2024. That's when we get our shovels in the ground. And you can see from the very bottom line here that we plan on starting to update the Safe Trip right away. I mean, it's not short. We have to get a pause, get FHWA sign off, and then we expect to make this a part of the process with our contractors, and we'll be modifying it as frequently as necessary and updating it. Next, please. And that's all I have, and I am ready to answer questions. It's a lot, but there's a lot of background, and I've got a lot of great people standing right next to me to make it happen.
Excellent. Thanks, Margaret. Any questions from around the floor for Margaret?
Wait, really?
I've got one for you. Around, you mentioned COVID a couple of times, and we don't know what the future is going to look like in terms of how travel is going to change, how accommodation requirements are going to change for businesses. But how have you been able to kind of scenario plan for increases in different modes that might be used versus, like you say, car through to micromobility or to cycling, and the demand from businesses? How do you reconcile all of that in what you're looking to do? Can you reconcile all of that?
Well, we're still in the process of developing the strategies and the concepts that might be available. And because we're still in the early stages of this, we are basically putting everything on the table that we can possibly put. You might be familiar with the successes of the Downtowner for downtown. And that program has been very, very well received. I used to use it when I lived in Channelside, or the Channel District. And that is a possibility. Something like that, we don't know. So we just keep putting things on the table. We also have taken a look, or we want to put on the table micromobility. So what about scooters? What about electric bikes, or having just bike hubs? Where is that going? There's a lot of different ways. We also considering, okay, what is transit going to look like in 4 years? Are we going to be in buses? How big is the bus? Or will there be a circumstance where the buses might be smaller and we have more separation? So we don't really know what it is, but at this point, we're not focusing on that too much. We want to make sure that we get as much on the table as possible. We recognize that the DOT isn't going to be able to do everything, and we're not going to be able to fund it all. So we would like for some of those smaller groups and those smaller partners may be able to take on the first mile, last mile element of something that DOT is funding. Like we could, like at a park and ride somewhere out on the first mile part, not just provide parking for cars, but what about having bicycle parking, sheltered, secured bicycle parking? What about putting it in locations where there are other amenities that are very convenient? We also be coming and looking for what other people are doing in other areas of the country that are further ahead. Our transit system is not as robust as you'd say in the city of Atlanta or DC or anything like that. But how are they handling the situation? So how are we going to be able to make adjustments for COVID?
That all makes sense. Someone's pinging. Alice, did you have a question? I thought I saw something flash up. I could be wrong.
I didn't ask one, but Margaret, I think one thing maybe you want to discuss just a little bit was the emergency management side, like the TIMS coordination, because that's an important part of making sure, our mobility is solid, especially through construction, and everything's going to look really different during construction.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. That actually is within Element 1. We have a focus team for that. And we just had a meeting with Pinellas, and we have another meeting scheduled with Hillsborough. And when it comes to the TIM group, we want to make sure that they started bringing up to our attention elements such as making sure that we have shoulders, even though you may not have shoulders through most of the work zone. Do you have locations every half mile or so where it's wide enough that a road ranger truck that has a push bumper would be able to push a vehicle out and get them out of the travel way. And then also making sure that we have all the legal rights in order to push it before the FHP shows up and it becomes such, you know, something much bigger than what it needs to be. That's just one example. And then also we've already talked about having a more robust Road Ranger program, and then the higher back program, how can that enhance it? So that's a complexity, but that is certainly baked into what we're working toward accomplishing.
Excellent. Thank you, Margaret and Alice. And Dean has just said the Hillsborough meeting is on August the 18th at 10 a.m. So perfect timing. Right, let's thank you, Margaret. That's really appreciated. Let's move over to Dan on Smart Work Zone concepts. I know Phil has been trying hard to give you control, but I think we're just going to have to drive it. Next slide, Dan, if that's okay. So over to you.
You're on mute, Dan.
Oh, thanks, Alice.
You're welcome.
So are you all seeing the slides?
We see your new haircut.
Yeah, or lack of. I guess I call it my Corona cut.
Hey, someone said that you lost a bet.
No, I wish.
Okay.
Philip, so you are pulling up the slides? Okay. All right, good. So I was presenting and I couldn't tell. So we can go with you driving. So I'm going to make it snappy though, so that we can make it through here in 10 minutes. First of all, I am Dan D'Antonio. I'm an owner's rep on Tampa Bay Next, responsible for TSM&O traffic, ITS, and safety, and also a TSM&O department manager in HNCB's West Florida office. And I'm going to be talking about smart work zones within the Gateway Corridor, which is part of the Safe Trip initiative that Margaret just went over. So the slides that I have put together, we'll talk about smart work zones in general. I know this group is pretty proficient with what they are and the various components, but we'll go over those things briefly. The objectives and goals of our deployment within Gateway, some elements of smart work zones, then the layouts that we're intending to deploy, some vendors if we want to, and then what we expect on the investment for a smart work zone within Gateway. Next slide. So FHWA defines a smart work zone as a work zone that's real time, that it's portable, it's automated, and it's reliable. And I'll show you how each of these components are being considered for Gateway. Next slide. So as part of the Safe Trip initiative, we've identified goals and objectives for what we want to achieve with smart work zones. So they're pretty basic. We want to improve safety, and we want to harmonize speed. Harmonized speed is a twofold benefit. It can improve safety, but it also can improve throughput, which in turn improves reliability. Those are two things that are increasingly important for over-congested, oversaturated areas such as the Tampa Bay area. Next slide. So across the country, although smart work zones are somewhat new, we do have some statistics that we found where we can expect to reduce crashes by about 5 to 45%. It's pretty big stratification, which is part of the reason why we're looking to get some data for the local area. We do have some tried and true TSM&O solutions that have improved mobility through speed harmonization. And then within construction, we definitely want to maximize the construction zone areas, which would reduce construction duration. And these are really key things for contractors. Next slide. So the Gateway project is what's shown over there on the right part of the screen. And this slide is put together because we actually have to get buy-in from contractors if we're to implement smart work zones at this stage in the project. So with the RTC, it might be a little bit different where we're not necessarily integrating in with contractors. But with this one, we need buy-in. So we put this together to show the benefit to them so that we can get smart work zones implemented, not just in Gateway, not just in Tampa Bay Next, but broadly across the region. And then we can share these. I don't need to read the bullets for you, but that was the intent of the slide, is to show the benefit from the contractor side. Next slide. So now to move into some of the basic elements. Well, the real-time data collection, we'd really want to know what speeds are like through the work zone, and the speeds will allow us to harmonize those speeds. Queues are also very important because we want to be able to message on where to expect queues or stop traffic. And then we want to know the volumes, which give us the throughput part of the equation. With the real-time messaging component, that's where we're going to use different techniques to provide messaging to the drivers, whether it be through roadside, portable changeable message signs, onboard units for connected vehicles, smartphone apps, and a number of other ways to provide that messaging. And on the harmonized speeds, it's a very important component, and I'll show you how we're looking at variable speed limit signs, specifically in Gateway, to achieve that. And then lastly, this information is going to be relayed back to the Regional Traffic Management Center. Next slide. So the various subsystems that we're looking at are definitely smart and portable sensors. Closed circuit television cameras, those are deployed along our roadside, really on 1 mile spacing, but already give us full coverage. But smart work zones introduce different geometries. And whereas our permanent CCTV locations may suffice for traditional or for our existing geometry, they may not for the smart work zones or for the work zone. Portable changeable message signs, and as we saw from the previous presentation, they're getting smarter. They're not just providing messages. Variable speed limit signs, speed feedback signs. The devices are important, but then we also want to be able to communicate. We want to collect data, transmit data, specifically in WZDX compliant data feed. And then we want to store that data in real-time cloud-based data analytics that will allow us to process it and make decisions. And then last two components on subsystems are traditional roadside units. Well, they're becoming traditional as we've gotten more CV deployments. And then FHP for enforcement activities. Next slide. All right, so for the portable sensors, I wanted to show the group that they come in various shapes and sizes, and that's really important for work zones because in Florida, we see drums quite frequently, but we also see concrete barriers, and concrete barriers allow us to actually deploy the strobe lights on top of the barriers, and these strobe lights can also have sensors. So if we don't have barrels, but we have barrier walls, we can still deploy these. They also, we already saw they come in cones, and they also come in portable changeable message signs, which give us a lot of tools in the toolbox for collecting the data at the locations that we need. Next slide. We talked about the portable CCTV, but the one thing I wanted to point out on this is not only is it for surveillance from the Traffic Management Center, we can also do things like speed collection, volume collection, wrong way driving detection, various other data collection efforts with CCTV. And that's what makes a portable CCTV even more valuable. Next slide. So with the portable changeable message signs, generally they are connected to the devices. They can display a library of messages that are predetermined based on algorithms that are fed by the device data collection. And then they provide the feedback to the driver in a traditional roadside method. Next slide. With the variable speed limit signs, you'll see on our diagrams that these are components that we're looking for in the speed management component. So there's really three parts to it. Posted speed limit, which is could be enforced by the law, the speed feedback, which is reminding people what they should be traveling, and then we can enhance that with also additional devices such as the flashing beacon you see in the example. Next slide. So this is a little diagram of, I think, what this group is mostly familiar with now and how we would implement something like a data warehouse and a work zone data exchange compliant data feed. So we're collecting new types of data from all of the smart work zone devices that are deployed or can be deployed. We're enriching that data with more traditional methods like the cameras or Bluetooth readers, weather stations, road weather information systems that we already have deployed. The intent on a work zone data exchange is to make that all in the same data format so that anybody can come and grab that data and use it, as we heard about in the previous presentations. Next slide. All right, so now we're jumping into the meat of the Gateway project. So what we've done to get work zones implemented on a broader scale than just 1 or 2 projects is start looking at standardization of plans. So for folks who work in the engineering world or the planning world, you know that we have a menu of standard plans for traffic control. And what we're doing is showing the various types of traffic control that would be needed to open up a work zone and how it can be supplemented by smart work zone devices, which is similar to the specification 670 that was shared earlier, but rather than a specification, it's a standard plan. And the intent is to be able to give this to contractors and allow them to supplement their standard traffic control plans and stages with smart work zone devices. Next slide. So this is a layout of the zipper merge. I want to fast forward to the next slide to give you a little bit of a PSA announcement that Nebraska DOT did for the zipper merge. If you click on that, it may open that up in YouTube.
What is a zipper merge? A lane is closed in a freeway construction zone. There are signs and arrow panels well ahead of the closure to let motorists know they need to move to an open lane. Traditionally, drivers merge as soon as it is safe to do so. Use a traditional merge when traffic volumes are low and cars are moving at highway speeds. When traffic is heavy, that one lane can back up fast. Sudden dangerous stops, significant delays, and angry motorists. When traffic backs up, there's a better way to merge. A zipper merge, also called a late merge, has motorists stay in their lanes until they reach the merge. There, each driver takes turns, alternating one lane of traffic, then the other, just like a zipper. Research has shown that this reduces backups by as much as 40%, as well as reducing serious crashes and road rage. Traffic can flow smoothly, backups can be reduced, and everyone benefits. So make your drive a zip. Do the zipper merge.
So I thought that was a good demonstration of how it works. You know, it's really just being courteous to other drivers, but the way a zipper merge works in reality, which is what we're showing here, is through a series of messaging, reminding people that this is the better way to merge for the benefit of all. But the unique thing about a smart work zone is that the message signs are populated by device placement, which would indicate lane closures, but then also by congestion as shown by speeds and volumes within a work zone. So it can fully be automated, and that's what we're showing here on what would eventually be a standard plan. Next slide. And it's a similar scenario where we start to have more lane closures. Within Gateway specifically, we do have 2 lanes closed at a time in some instances as they do quite a bit of bridge construction. I know the folks that are live in this region know that that's a big mammoth project, but on the scale of the West Shore Interchange for the Safe Trip program, you know, that's a $1.4 billion program. So we'll have several of these applications, and we'll go through these standardization and plans with each of them in deploying the smart work zone devices. Next slide, and we're wrapping it up here. So this is the most complex. This would be a diversion. So it seems to get fairly busy, although this is condensed. But you see what we have on here is all of our smart work zone strategies where we have speed management. You see the variable speed limit signs. We show the devices that are detecting what's going on within the work zone, and then also zipper merge. So the good thing about the smart work zone strategies is they are scalable and they can all be overlaid for specific use cases. Next slide. So through some research and looking at and talking to vendors, we have put together this return on investment chart. And really what we're seeing is that the longer we deploy the smart work zones, the greater the return on the investment. Although the cost escalates, the number of crashes that we can expect to reduce also increase to where we see some very big returns on investment for some of the longer duration construction projects. And we're really looking to refine this graph or this chart as we collect real world data here within District 7 in the Tampa Bay region, starting with the gateway deployment and moving on to other projects. And with that, that's the update on the approach for smart work zones within Gateway.
Awesome, thanks Dan, thanks for doing that so quickly. Got one question coming from Pete Costello. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. Thanks, Lee. Hey, Dan, has that merge late message been used with success elsewhere?
Yeah, actually, of these strategies, I think that is one of the more mature. And so when we talk about mature, we're only talking 1 to 2 years. I can't tell you exactly where, but it hasn't been used that frequently within Florida. Although I do know that there are some arterial areas that we're also looking to deploy it and look at the benefit. But Pete, I'll follow up with some of the research that we've done on other areas where it's been deployed successfully.
Thanks, Dan.
Sure.
I can chime in. It's been done in Nevada. The Nevada Department of Transportation did it on our huge Project Neon, which was on I-15 right through the middle of downtown Las Vegas and US 95, another urban freeway that intersected with that. So NDOT was very pleased with it.
Great. Perfect. I won't follow up, Pete. There's one example.
Excellent. Ken Spitz. Ken, have you got a question regarding standardized signs?
Hey, Dan. I know in the past, I think it was in Georgia, I saw a sign at a ramp, and I don't think it was necessarily construction, but it was one of those 2-lane to 1-lane, you know, as you're coming on, and it said take turns. Has there, that's kind of a zipper merge, that's exactly what it is. Are there some sort of standardized signs that FHWA is using? Because I don't think most people are going to know what that concept is.
Yeah. You know, there actually aren't. There are not standardized messages. There is a message, and the one that you referenced is from FHWA, but as far as MUTCD or any other standard guidance on what should be on the messages, there's nothing standardized. And that's a really good question, Ken, because the arterial location that I was talking about, where we're looking at doing this actually in Manatee County, the engineering reviewers had the same question with what is the most standard messages. How are people going to know what this means? I do think, you know, and I agree, I see your statement that most people won't see a PSA. When we do have innovative things like this, I believe that we need to do our best to get the message out there, but there's also going to be a learning curve. The unfortunate thing about a work zone is that it doesn't last forever. But the more people end up seeing these within work zones, maybe not even within the same project, but the next project, I think people will get the hang of it. You know, it's similar to the flashing yellow arrow and the kind of outreach that we did for that. Even the countdown pedestrian signals. I mean, we've had to make these big changes, but I agree, it's going to take time for people to learn what that means.
Yeah, I made a comment in the chat too. I mean, I think we've all seen it where people will actually, you come up to one of those merges and people will actually block a lane because they think, hey, I waited in this side of the line. What are you doing driving past me, getting up ahead of me? They don't understand the zipper merge concept. Yeah.
Yeah, we have the human element we're trying to address, and that's usually the most challenging element.
Agreed.
Absolutely. And one final question. Eric Hill raised his hand. Eric, do you want to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Just to follow up on Ken's comment, and it's more of a comment. I can recall years ago hearing an NPR report about merging and how late merging is the optimal way for you to get to the front of the line. And I'm just surprised to hear that the whole, I guess it's a FDOT strategy of zipper merges. How is that, and again, following up on Ken's comment, how is that being conveyed to the public that this is what you're supposed to do? Is it supposed to be intuitive that people will allow someone or yield to someone to get into the lane, as opposed to, again, the whole concept of just late merging just to get to the front?
Hey, Dan, this is Alice. I'm going to jump in on that. from an engagement standpoint. So again, that P in the TRIP process is the engagement. And there is an early education part for the public that will be a part of the Safe Trip initiative, because you're right, they're not going to see a PSA that's sitting right on the end of the construction zone. But we're talking, 6 months in advance, starting to train the public to think differently, to understand what a beast we're going to have under construction, in this area. And because of the proximity to the airport and the local businesses and the truck traffic that traverses, the earlier the better. So and that would be something that'll be extensive. It won't just be a couple of things that you're going to hear on the radio. I would think that we would have to be very broad in our range of trying to reach people and early.
And the last thing on that, if you would just real quickly show slide 15, because I think slide 15 does a good job at showing the sequence of messaging to do our best to get people to obey the signs. Next slide past that one. It's the one that showed, keep going towards the end. Is actually towards the end that showed the layout of the zipper merge, and we went through that one pretty quickly. But it shows the sequence going. There it is. So slow traffic ahead, use all lanes. Road work ahead, slow traffic, use all lanes. And then merge here, take turns. That does require that the yellow cars in that line are courteous and let the red cars in. But the concept is that if they're seeing that these people were directed to do this, that they'll be a little more generous in allowing them a gap to enter that middle lane. So, we'll see how it works. I mean, we heard that it worked fairly well in Nevada, and we'll test it here.
You can also go to YouTube.
It also worked in Virginia.
Yeah, you could go to YouTube and just check for other examples of this. They're just in our research. There's 3 different versions of the PSAs that were going out. So there's a lot that is already explained out there.
Excellent.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Dan. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to be bad cop and have to move on to the next piece. So this is more, this next part of the agenda is more conversational, more open. So Sean's going to facilitate a conversation around work zone data particularly. But then there's a section towards the end where we've got more of an open forum for public agencies if they've got any updates they would like to share, just to kind of open up and contribute any thoughts that they would have. So I will now hand over to Sean. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Lee. So I'm Sean Barbeau with the Center for Urban Transportation Research at USF, and we've been talking about work zone data exchange format, or WZDX, for a little while now. It came on our radar early, and as we've heard, it's been something that we've been talking about that's been integrated into the Safe Trip campaign as one of those information sharing techniques. And in a nutshell, this is a standardized format that was published by US DOT, and its goal is to enable standardized information sharing of work zone information. So where these work zones are, how long they're expected to last, and that should hopefully facilitate all this different smart equipment that we're seeing, and from apps that are able to, our video cameras that are able to do image processing and understand where cones are, to sensors and the connected signs that you can throw out there. So no matter what the source of the information is, we're able to format it in a standardized way so it can be shared between different organizations. And this really simplifies the data sharing among our region. So we did want to open it up for people to talk. So there was a US DOT work zone data exchange demonstration grant opportunity that actually closed, I believe it was this last Monday on August 3rd. And we wanted to open up just for organizations if you wanted to update, and if anyone ended up applying for this grant here in Tampa or elsewhere. I think John from RTC already mentioned that they had submitted an application. application. So we just wanted to open up the floor if you are interested in sharing what your organization is doing and decided to pursue. Regarding to this, the floor is open.
Yeah, this is John Penuelos with the RTC. We did, in fact, get that in Monday, just right under the wire, just in time delivery. We partnered with the Transportation Research Center at UNLV. We think a very strong application, being able to point to that spec and the fact that we are going to be getting devices on the jobs that will, provide the foundation for that feed is, I think, is going to be key. Of course, there are a lot of challenges associated with that. The agencies, like I said, have to be on board since they prosecute the projects. They have to be on board with putting those devices on their jobs. There will be an increase in cost associated with that, of course. We're willing to pay that cost, but that is money that is to do, even if we come up with the extra money, that's theoretically money that's being diverted from, brick and mortar, so to speak. So some of the old salts in the valley are not 100% on board with the concept, but we're working through that. So if you can find a university to partner with you, I would recommend that. The director there was able to fashion it and use the proper lingo. I think that it's really going to stick, I'm hoping, with the reviewers. It was way better than what the engineers came up with, although he's an engineer himself. So an academician and an engineer.
Great, thanks, John. See, Eric, I think your hand is up here. I don't know if that's from your previous question or if you had something new to share about WZDX.
No, it's from the previous question. I apologize.
Gotcha, no problem. Just wanted to make sure we didn't miss you. Was there anyone else that wanted to share about a grant application to USDOT for the demonstration grants?
Sean, it's Lee. I think there'd been some regional conversations. I think one of the partner agencies was looking to pursue one, but it slipped my mind at the moment.
I had heard some rumbling that Hillsborough County was possibly pursuing it, but I didn't hear the final outcome.
And there are 3 different categories, if I remember right, or challenge areas, whatever the heck they call it. We're focused on the category 1, which was actually standing up the feed, but there are others as well. Has anybody looked at any of those in your area, the other 2? I can't remember off the top of my head what they are because we were so focused on the first one.
I'm just checking if anybody from Hillsborough's on the call.
Yeah, I don't think that anybody in Hillsborough's from, but I know Johnny did a great job in kind of organizing our conversation and pulling the city and DOT together. And at this point, we felt like the dollar amounts were small. And so the effort that would have taken to do a coordinated effort was a little bit beyond what we were willing to on this one. But we did want everybody to know it wasn't, that would not end just because we weren't going for the grant doesn't end the conversation. We're still very interested, and Margaret, you can chime into that, in keeping up the conversation.
Yeah, we are working as aggressively as we can in order to establish our work zone data exchange and establishing the protocol, and then getting a place for all this to be housed and shareable.
Yeah, and that is a good point. It is a small amount of money. We're going to do a lot of it. We have our IT department and our new relationship with the Transportation Research Center at UNLV was really the key in getting us to put forth the effort for what amounts to maybe $200,000. We're not 100% sure we're actually going to get the feed up and published. We're confident that that's going to happen, but we're not overly confident that's going to happen. But we're going to learn a lot in trying to get there. And upper management, the executive suite felt that it was worth the effort to put it together. And because we've gone, like I explained, this is such a important thing for us in the Las Vegas Valley. We really could not let it go, regardless of the amount of money that was at stake. When for basically 4 years, we've been harping on the agencies to do better when it comes to managing work zones. So we kind of had to sleep in the bed that we made, and we're going to see how far it goes.
Great, thanks. Yeah, and I should mention too that while there are all kinds of different smart devices that we can use to automatically collect and publish this work zone data, there are more traditional information sharing techniques too that if you have your work zone information in a database somewhere internally at the agency or in some storage, there are baby steps that we can take too without full equipment deployment, where you could start reformatting that data and sharing it in the WZDX format. So we wanted to open it up to agencies. If anyone, so the public sector, if anyone wanted to share about how you're currently managing your work zone data, and if WZDX is on your roadmap, and maybe any conversations or partnerships that have you been talking with specific vendors or partner agencies? What does this look like? I guess, what's your planned roadmap from where you are right now?
So does that indicate a lack of interest by our region in the WZDX?
I should preface that with, I know that FDOT District 7, Hillsborough County, and City of Tampa have all previously indicated that this is a priority to them. So this may be somewhat a broken record, I guess, if we're talking about those 3 agencies specifically. But if any other agencies, including outside the Tampa Bay region, want to share any lessons learned in this area, that's certainly hope to learn from other people's experience too.
Hey, this is Phil. I added into the chat the 3 areas that John was talking about: the publication of a new feed, the increase the system coverage of an existing feed, and/or add additional optional fields to an existing compliant feed.
Great, thanks, Phil. I'll share too. So I've been monitoring the WZDX format. It's published on GitHub, which is an open source code sharing forum, which has been used for data specification development as well. And there was a discussion recently I saw that came up there, which I've linked to here in the chat, that Massachusetts DOT published some documentation they had pulled together for the WZDX example API requirements documentation. So this is something they can share with their partners if they have a new vendor coming on board, and the vendor says, "Oh, we can provide WZDX data, but how should we do this?" And this is a document that they can share that then helps them make sure that they're getting the data. And even though WZDX is a standardized format, there's different ways that you can configure the feed and share the information. And this ensures that they're getting kind of what they expect with their different partners. So I think that's certainly something that could be useful to anyone that's looking to create WZDX feeds. So why don't we ask the private sector? So on the vendor side of things, I guess what opportunities have you seen? Have you been involved in creating WZDX feeds or consuming that data, and what interesting things with that?
Hey, Sean, this is Chris Melster with CV, Connected Company in Tampa. So we took the view that, let's try and see what we can use in the Tampa area to see if we can create a WZDX feed from existing data. And, the partners in the region actually have a lot of really good things. There's a lot of really rich data that exists, both in the Hillsborough and Pinellas counties. Kind of the challenge as a private company we ran into was really taking something that was not meant to be machine readable and turn it into something machine readable. And so from a translation perspective, it's, from a software development perspective is pretty difficult. But we see from a driver's perspective that they want this information, and that even in commutes that they know the route, they want to know, well, what's happening. Is there anything unexpected that I need to plan for? Yeah, that's kind of what we've done, and we've really dived deep into the data. There's a lot there. So I think there's a lot that the region has. I think it's, from a developer's perspective, it's turning it, it's taking that to the next step.
Great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's excellent. I think from what I've seen so far, it definitely looks to looking at some of the data that I don't know how to put an exact percentage on it, but like you said, there's a lot of really useful information there, and I think maybe with some process tweaks of given that a lot of this information was created before it wasn't before the concept of WZDX existed, and wasn't really intended to be machine readable. So yeah, I don't know if there's any. Do you have a quick highlight list of kind of your most wanted or the lessons learned, I guess, from what you've seen so far?
Sure.
Yeah.
Honestly, sorry to cut across. We're over on time, so I wonder if we can we could reach out to vendors separately, because I mean it's obviously been a fantastic topic, and there's lots of questions and probably a lot more contribution that we could benefit on. So what we could maybe do, Sean, just to put it out there, is maybe reach out separately to vendors and kind of create a dialogue to follow up on. And clearly, if people have got time now to stay on and continue the conversation, that would be awesome. But I want to respect people's schedules as well. So we can continue the conversation around work zone data and sharing ideas around that. That'd be fantastic. I know I can stay on for a short while, but if you need to drop off, thank you for your time. We will be sharing the slides on the Tampa-based Smart City Alliance website, and we are looking at the next workshop later in the year to have a conversation around the mobility as a service pilot. So that's the next plan. So for now, thank you. If you've got time to stay on, awesome.
Great, thanks, Lee. Yeah, and so if you are interested in any vendor information, I would say just leave your contact information in the chat, and it's something that we can follow up and share.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Margaret. Thanks all.